Hey everyone, it's Frankie-Lou. I'm coming to you today from the horseradish patch at the Grow Together homestead. If you do decide to take horseradish on as an edible perennial in your garden, and I love it, like I eat the leaves as well, and I have a whole video about that if you're interested. It really is one of those things that's gonna take a licking and keep on ticking because it just comes back year after year after year. So much so that it's actually quite an invasive species. Even here in Zone 3, Southern Alberta, you probably see horseradish all over the place. And maybe you don't recognize it, but now that I grow it, I see it everywhere because it is something that will just continue to grow here and will continue to spread. The leaves have started to die off here, so it doesn't look very pretty, but it's actually a gorgeous plant. Now, as you can see, that's a really lush plant, and it's also extremely hardy, like I said. The reason I'm doing my horseradish harvesting right now is because it's the perfect timing for it, really. Horseradish should really only be harvested when it's nice and cold because that cold temperature in the soil helps to develop those volatile oils which make it super tangy and make your nose tingle and stuff. Like, who wants to eat mild horseradish, right? I wait until cold months, so I harvest it once I've had a few freezes. And honestly, here in southern Alberta, we've had mostly freezing at night, but it's beautiful during the day. So the soil is nice and soft, which makes it easier to get out. Which brings up another point. This stuff, if you've ever dealt with rhubarb before, okay, rhubarb and horseradish share a lot in common. They're both extremely hardy, so will do well in zone 3, and they have monster roots. I just want to show you here. Look at that. Like that I have been digging at. I was looking for a workout today and I'm getting it, that's for sure. That's the top of one of my horseradish plants, and I got about 12 here. So I don't want to take them all out. Barb as both an invasive species, and if you do want to grow it, I keep mine contained in raised beds. And if you leave a little bit of root in the soil, it's going to come back next year. So I don't dig it all up because I like to have lots of it on hand. But even if you think you've dug up all of your horseradish, you probably haven't, and it's going to continue to come up. So make sure that you've got it when you do go to move this stuff into your garden in the spring, say, if you do happen to get a hold of a nice root and you want to plant some, make sure you got it where you want it to be and keep it contained, okay? I do really recommend doing this in raised beds. It's not going to harm it. It's going to come back. It can handle the weather, and it's going to take over your garden if you let it. Okay, fair warning. But I really find it's worth it having it around. So I'm going to show you some of my techniques here for digging it up, and which basically just means hard work. And then I'm going to give you a couple tips on processing it as well. So here we go. First of all, this is what I'm looking for. I like the big thick root like there is a little bit woody, whereas this is the size that I'm looking for, which is perfect. If I dig up one of those roots, it'll have lots of offshoots. These roots are deep and strong. I want to show you here, this pitchfork is crooked for a reason, and that reason is horseradish, okay? This is strong stuff. What I do is I'm going to loosen a whole bunch of dirt around the plant that I want to take up, and then I use the pitchfork to lift the main plant out, and then I use a nice handy dandy trowel to sort of dig around and try to get all those smaller roots, which is what I really want to have for my eating, okay? So I'm going to come at it from all angles, try to get it on all sides here, the plant I'm trying to get up. It's okay if I'm stepping on the other plant. It doesn't care. This stuff is tough. So basically doing a circle around the plant and loosening the soil and lifting. You hear it cracking in there. Okay, got some nice loosened stuff. I'm going to take out some of the excess leaves if I can get at it. Give it a bit of a pull. I'm not throwing these leaves away. They're awesome to act as dry matter to put on top of my beds, which I do with my fall bed prep. There's a whole video about that. But they're excellent for compost, and they're also excellent as a dry matter to place on top of your beds in the fall. Okay, so I'll keep those aside. Okay, I'm getting somewhere. Oh, there we go. Starting to feel one come loose. Oh, perfect. Here's a nice root segment. There's another good runner root segment. It's a good idea to get these too if I don't want the plants to spread. It's really a matter of getting the soil loose around it so you can pull out as much as possible. And I have honestly found over the years my pitchfork is best for that. Okay, there we go. Aha! Perfect. Okay. Well, I'm going to keep at this. And, oh, another thing I wanted to say. When you are harvesting your horseradish, I usually let it go for a year before I try to harvest it. Just like any of my edible perennials, the more you can let that rootstock develop, the better. And so usually when I'm harvesting are the big runners off of a main plant, or I'm leaving one of my older plants and digging up one of the offshoots that it grew that year, and that's what this root is. This is from a 1 year offshoot. I don't need that plant to come back because there's tons and tons and tons of it here. But even so, see this? There's probably still this much left in the soil, which I'm going to go after now, and I'll come back to you guys in a minute. Okay, so I have done some of my horseradish harvest. I got a nice bucket full of root here. And I'm just going to quickly show you how you can process and store it so that it'll last as long as possible. Now, first of all, when it comes to storing, I don't grate it until I plan to use a bunch of it. So I find that it stores best. I don't wash these roots. What I do is I let them dry out a bit, brush them off, get the excess dirt off, and bundle them up as tightly as I can. So I got a bunch here, and pop them in. I like these reusable produce bags, but I like to get them so they're nice and tight together. And then I just like to keep them in my crisper tray down in my fridge, and they'll keep nice and firm like this if they're all together like this for quite a while, like a few months. So that's what I do until I'm ready to use it. Now, when I am ready to use it and process and grate it, because I really like having either fresh grated horseradish right on my steaks the way it is, or I make a nice little condiment with white wine vinegar. So at that point, I wash it, and I've washed this one in advance to show you, and I process it outside, okay? Now that might not seem important, but unless you want to be choking in your house, it's best to do this outside. Because boy, you can smell the oils coming off of this, and it will make you choke. You want to get off all the nice hard outer yellow part so that you've got just the nice white pith sort of exposed. Now, some people prefer to process this in a blender. I don't. I prefer to use my rasp grater because I like that nice fine texture, and it is a little more work, but I feel like it's worth it. So another thing is this is very, very spicy the way it is. And if you grate it and you leave it, it's going to be super, super tangy. Now, in order to make it last longer and to be able to preserve it in the fridge in a grated state, you're going to be wanting to put it in some white wine vinegar. But if you put it directly into the vinegar, it's going to, those oils that are exposed when you grate it aren't going to have as much chance to sort of really develop. So basically, I start grating some, let it sit for a couple minutes, and then I put it in the vinegar, and that goes in the fridge, okay? So I'm just gonna start giving this a little bit of a grate. And honestly, like, I truly love that right on my steaks, okay, the way it is. I just love it, but I really, really like spicy food. So you might prefer to grate it up. And I love the texture that I get with the rasp grater, a lot more than some blended up mucky guck. We're having some steaks tonight, so I'm gonna get to have some of this tonight. Oh, that's perfect. I love it like that. So I'm letting this sit. And thank goodness I waited for that a few nights of frost, because it does make a difference. I'm going to let that sit for a couple minutes. Where it's at right now is perfect to me. So at this point, I've let it sit for a few minutes, and now I'm putting it in this vinegar. And once I put it in the vinegar, it sort of seizes it at the heat level that it's at. Okay, so the moral of this is, if you like it, if you really like your horseradish nice and hot, don't put it in the vinegar right away. Okay, now this, I'm going to make a whole bunch more. I'm going to make a little half-pint jar of it. I'm going to put the lid on it, and I'm going to stick it in the fridge, and that'll keep for a few weeks like that. I don't can this stuff because I haven't been able to find any recipe that is safe for canning it. So basically the way that I work with my horseradish is I keep it fresh in the fridge, intact in these bags, and I use it every few weeks. I create another one of these little jars of sort of horseradish and vinegar, and it's ready to go. And I can usually make my horseradish last through till it's coming up again in the spring. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you'll give horseradish a try. As I said, it's a beautiful plant, if nothing else, and the leaves are wonderful as well, and we like to eat those as well. Ask any questions if you have any in the comments, and as always, I hope you take this chance to grow together today. Have a good one.